Hi guys, it's Matt here from MCS-books, and today I'm here to do another tag video. Now I've been tagged in quite a few videos, so I think the next couple were going to be tags, and then after that I'm going to take a hiatus from tags and start delivering more content that I put a lot more thought into. Well, actually I put thought into these tags, so but I mean more content that I guess is original and from my mind and whatnot. So this tag is the My Pleasure book tag. It was a tag created by Steve Partridge, and he was lovely enough to tag me. So here I am, Steve, I'm doing it for you. And yes, it's a tag about all the simple pleasures in life, which is interesting because I had just finished reading this one, A Cup of Sake Beneath the Cherry Trees by Kenko. Yeah, it's all about life's simple pleasures, and it's about a monk who ruminates on all the simple things in life. However, I only give it 3 stars because it was some of the things were a little bit questionable. And anyway, enough of that. Let's get to the prompts that Steve has laid out for this tag. So the first one is think. Choose a book that made you think, and think hard. And for this one, I'm going to choose 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And I have chosen this one because throughout the entire book, it was very slow and very difficult for me to get into it. There were so many characters with the same names, and it spanned so many generations that I began to get confused between the characters. For me, it wasn't really an enjoyable read, and I was going to put it down so many times. But I'm glad I finished it, because the last sentence of this book just kind of tied everything together so well and so beautifully that it made me sit there for quite a while and really think about everything that I had read before and kind of assess why I didn't like it whilst I was reading it, but now all of a sudden with just one line I was able to love it and kind of reflect so much about what the story was really trying to tell me. And I mean, it was kind of explicit. There was considering it's called 100 Years of Solitude, I don't think you then need to be told how often the characters are in solitude, because that word cropped up a lot in the book, which kind of made me roll my eyes many times. However, there was just so much more to it that kind of I only got upon finishing the book. So I guess that was one that I definitely thought about after and really engaged with. I still do think it's a little bit overhyped. I don't think it's worth as much merit as it is given. However, I will concede that in hindsight it is better than I originally thought it was. So for the next prompt is love. A book that broke your heart or mended your heart. So I'm going to choose a book that did both. This is my favourite book, and you might have seen me talk about it one time before. It is The Secrets of Jin-shei by Alma Alexander. It is set in a fictional medieval China, and it's about a sisterhood that binds these women together, and it spans how this sisterhood shapes their lives. So it goes over 80 years, and it was just, truly beautiful. It's beautifully written, and the prose is wonderful and engaging, and enough happens for it to be really interesting and for you to want to see what's going to happen next. I feel that with this book, there's a little bit for every reader. There's something that somebody can enjoy out of it. And for me, the bond between the women and their friendship really just made me happy, but then also there were so many parts in it that I cried and kind of broke me and destroyed me, and it was definitely worth it. And its sequel, The Embers of Heaven, took this world and took this story that I loved and brought it to a kind of contemporary time, which of course represents the Cultural Revolution in China, and that again broke my heart, but then mended it in another way. So I think the two of them combined together are just so powerful and so wonderful that for me there's a duology which I truly love, and it did both break and mend my heart. So the third one is Eat, a book that nourishes you. I found this one to kind of be difficult to choose a book for this, because I was trying to define nourish. For me, what does it mean for me to be nourished by a book? And on the one hand, I kind of wanted to do a book about food, which like explores food and everything, and kind of nourishes me in that way, because the prompt is eat. However, I was then thinking, but what else nourishes me? And I'm going to choose Triste Tropique by Claude Levi-Strauss, because this book just really instilled my love for anthropology, and I feel like it was just so well written. It's non-fiction, but it's witty, and it's almost like reading a fictional story, and it was just everything that I kind of wanted and needed. And it's one of those books that I feel like I can keep coming back to like nourish my interest in my studies and people and different cultures and exploration. And I think that it's one of these texts that in the beginning and the end, when he talks about travel, even though he's talking about traveling in the 50s, the things that he says really resonate with me and make me kind of consider my own traveling and what I want from it. Yes, I think that's one that will truly continue to nourish me, especially in times when I feel maybe a bit lost. So our next prompt is Laugh, a book that brought you a little bit of comic relief. And I don't really read funny books. I don't know why. I'm not, like, I don't know why, but my sense of humour doesn't really do well from comedies, like on TV or movies or in books, I guess. So for this one, I am going to choose Luigi Pirandello, 6 Characters in Search of Authors and Other Plays, and I'm particularly going to choose the play So It Is, If You Think So. For me, this one was very much like it was laid out and presented like a traditional farce. And when I studied farces before, some of them I do really enjoy. Some of them I'm a little bit like, oh, come on. But there's just something very human about farces, which I think I will always get pleasure out. And I think it's more like a universal humour. So this one, whilst it does have those traditional farcical vibes to it, it's quite like a interesting philosophical exploration of how we create personas of other people, and then how we kind of define truth and don't truly understand truth. And it was just a really interesting exploration, and it was funny. So this one, I think, definitely fits into this category. So for number 5, the prompt is sex. A book that explores or contains sexuality which doesn't make you cringe. Now, like Steve, I don't particularly read many romance novels, but I do think that in a lot of literary fiction there is a lot of like exploration of sex. So the book that I'm actually going to choose is Colorless Tsukuru Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haruki Murakami. For me, there was just, the exploration of sex in this was really interesting, and it wasn't typical to how he usually explores sex. And there was like an allegation against the main character, which kind of made you ruminate on this concept of sex and consent and everything in a very evocative and intriguing way, which when you read the book, you kind of then learn more about, and it gets deeper. And there was just this one particular scene within it where you're not entirely sure what has happened, and you're not convinced whether the character has had sex or not, but there's just this like mysterious scene in the nighttime when a mirage of a character, or perhaps not, you're not entirely sure, comes and the main character experiences orgasm. And it's very much like a phantom sex scene or something. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just so, for me, it was just so well done and well written that it kind of, so on one hand, it was very much true and real to life and very, it was engaging and I could believe it. And on the other hand, it kind of cast so many doubts in my mind, and it really made you think about sexuality and the human sexual orientation and like the sort of fluidness of sexuality. And it was just so well written that I actually really enjoyed it. So the next prompt is Rest, a book that gave you peace, reflection, or just genuinely calmed you down. For me, I think I'm going to choose The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This was one of those books that I read at the right time in my life, that it kind of just spoke to me, and it really like sort of calmed me down. And it's one of those, I feel like now this book has become one of those like cliches that young people read and feel like they've suddenly learned everything about the world. And I wouldn't say I learned much about the world from this book, but I did learn things about myself, and like it gave me a little sense of direction at a time that I needed it. So for me, it was at that moment I did feel very like calmed and at peace from reading this. I don't think it's a book that I want to sit down and reread. I don't feel like I need it anymore. It was just a one thing that fulfilled a purpose in that time, and I'm so glad for it, for being there. However, it's not one that I particularly want to dip in again, and I don't think it will bring me that same sense again. And also, I've gone off Coelho so much after reading Aleph, like I'm done with him. So perhaps no more of his work. And the last one is Experience, a book that introduced you to a new subject or shifted your perspective. I feel for this one, I'm going to choose Black Swan Green by David Mitchell. This was a book that I wish I had read when I was younger. And this was one of those works of fiction where I was finally able to understand how people can like connect with characters on a whole different level than they've been before. Like this was that book for me where I kind of realised how much you can connect with a character. And actually this is one of those ones also where I feel made me sort of question what it means for representation within media. For in this book, the main character has a stammer, and it's quite autobiographical. It's very much the closest to David Mitchell's heart. I don't have a stammer, but the way that the stammer then affected the main character's life and the way that it kind of shaped who he was at such a pivotal time in his life, like I think he's 14 at the time. So the way that it shaped his life was very much it was written in a way that told my own story, but instead of having a stammer, it was like other things for me. But everything else was very much the same. And then the story behind the divorce of his parents and the way that kind of like came out really like was just so close to home for me. And it was one of those books that I think it changed my perspective on how other people connect with books and how I can connect with books, but it also changed my perspective on sort of the meaning of representation and the ability to empathize with characters who aren't the same as us, but who at the same time have very similar stories. So it kind of like opened my mind that representation is actually a lot broader than I think a lot of people give it credit for. So these are the books, and now it is time to tag some people. Steve has tagged quite a few people, and some of them are people I might have tagged, so I'll try to think of new people. The first one would be Davide from David Hook. The second one is going to be Silje. The third one is going to be Shazza from Hooked on Books. And the fourth one is going to be Beth from Beth Chats Books. And the last one is going to be Gina from Bibliophils. I hope I said your name right. Is it Gina or Jenna? I think it's Gina. Yes, these are my choices. Go forth and do what you will with this tag. I look forward to seeing all your videos, and thank you, Steve, for making this tag and for tagging me. And I hope you enjoyed my books that I discussed in this one. So if you did like this video, you can always give it a thumbs up, and you can always subscribe if you're not already. And I'll see you next time for another video. Bye bye.